I'm Christopher Purdy, the president of DKT International, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Phil Harvey, a visionary, pioneer, and titan in the world of social marketing. Phil, along with Tim Black, co-founded Population Services International, PSI, then founded DKT International, and has sat for many years on the board of Mary Stopes International, MSI. All three organizations have had a tremendous impact on the family planning, reproductive health, and general well-being of millions of people across multiple countries globally.
I first got interested in family planning in India way back in the 1960s. I was there with CARE and a school feeding and preschool feeding lunch program, and we were importing massive amounts of American so-called surplus food. It became fairly clear to me in the process of feeding kids that if we wanted to help in a way that would be more permanent and more real in terms of being useful to Indian citizens, family planning would be a much more sensible approach. In India, social marketing was part of the discussion that was going on to use the commercial infrastructure and commercial techniques. For example, Brooke Bond tea's distribution. Brooke Bond had its tea in something like 200,000 Indian shops. I mean, it was everywhere. Why shouldn't contraceptives be available in just as many shops as Brooke Bond tea? And that was the origination of the idea for social marketing. I simply came to the conviction that however we were going to help people, by God, we were going to do it in such a way as not to create this disparity between the giver and the recipient. Social marketing is particularly well designed for this, because when you're selling a subsidized product through a commercial distribution system, the customer is an equal. The customer parts with his or her own money, not very much, sometimes just a bit, but they make a purchase of what looks like a commercially available product in the marketplace. They're equal to the storekeeper. They give a little bit of money, the storekeeper gives them a product, the deal is done. Nobody is superior to anybody else. Nobody needs to be grateful to anybody else. It works just fine that way, and that's an aspect of the approach that has always been important to me. Over the last 40 years, the improvements have been astonishing. The use of contraceptives has gone from roughly 20% of married couples around the world to more than half of married couples around the world, nearly 60% now. So contraceptive use has been going up. Birth rates have been coming down. People are getting control over their family size. People are getting control over their fertility. And it's impossible to say which programs have contributed the most. Certainly DKT's and PSI's and MSI's programs have speeded up this process at the very least. We demonstrated to the world that this method of social marketing, this method of providing birth control through the commercial networks and infrastructure, is effective. It goes to scale. It's very cost effective. The cost per couple year of protection is $2, $3, $4 as opposed to much more expensive approaches. The next step in social marketing is to continue to expand. It's still growing by 2 or 3 million beneficiaries a year. That is, every year we measure. The efficacy of the approach has been demonstrated. Other people do it. It's no longer considered new or innovative. In fact, that's one of the challenges for getting donor funds for social marketing programs. It's now looked upon as so well established that it's a little boring. But making contraceptives available to more women and couples around the world through a tried and a well-established mechanism seems to me like a pretty good thing. As a personal and as a moral issue, family planning is a big winner. The ability for parents to control the number and timing of pregnancies and births is an enormously liberating phenomenon. We saw 50 years ago, 40 years ago, a world in which most women were virtual slaves to their fertility, to their repeated pregnancies, making it possible for women especially to become free of that burden, to decide when to have children and how many children to have, is an enormous advance in human rights. It multiplies with its impact on family economics. The impact of giving people the right to control their own fertility is very, very significant. Anyone who opposes it is a fool, and probably an evil fool at that, it seems to me.